Your dog just crossed onto my property again. This is the fourth time this week. It was 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. My neighbor Gerald was standing at my front door in his bathrobe, holding a measuring tape and a clipboard. A clipboard. For context, our crime was that my daughter's soccer ball had rolled 3 feet onto his lawn while she was playing in our backyard. And apparently, my golden retriever Max had committed the unforgivable sin of sniffing a bush that was technically 6 inches on his side of the property line. This was my life now, and it was about to get so much worse before it got better. Let me back up. We moved in to 42 Riverside Drive 3 years ago. It was perfect. A 4-bedroom house with a big backyard right on the edge of a nature preserve with a stunning view of the Clearwater River. My wife, Emma, and I had 2 kids, Lily, who was 8, and Jake, who was 6. We also had Max, our overly friendly golden retriever who thought every human on earth was his best friend. The house next door, number 44, had been empty when we moved in. The realtor mentioned it was in probate, some family dispute over an inheritance. We had 6 beautiful, peaceful months with no neighbors. The kids could play freely, Max could run around, and we had privacy. Then, Gerald and Patricia Whitmore moved in. Gerald was 67, retired from some middle management position at an insurance company. Patricia was 64, a former librarian, no kids, no pets, no hobbies that I could see except maintaining their lawn with the precision of a golf course groundskeeper. The first week was fine. We introduced ourselves, brought over a welcome basket with homemade cookies. They smiled, thanked us, and seemed pleasant enough. The second week, things changed. Gerald knocked on our door on a Tuesday evening. "I wanted to discuss boundaries," he said, holding a rolled-up document. It was a survey of our properties. He'd had it done professionally, with measurements down to the inch. "I just want to make sure we're both clear on where my property ends and yours begins," he said, pointing to the survey. "I've noticed your children playing near the property line, and I want to avoid any future disputes." "Sure," I said, trying to be neighborly. "We'll make sure the kids understand. I'd also appreciate it if you could keep your dog on your side. He has a tendency to wander." Max, who was literally the friendliest creature on earth, had apparently committed the crime of walking past their house on our evening walks. I said he's on a leash when we walk, but sure, we'll be mindful. "Thank you," Gerald smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I just like things orderly. I should have seen the warning signs then, but I was trying to be understanding. Some people are just particular. It didn't have to be a problem. I was so wrong. Over the next few months, Gerald's requests became demands. He put up small flags along the property line, bright orange ones, every 6 feet, like we were living next to a construction zone. He installed a security camera pointed directly at our backyard. When I asked about it, he said, "I just want to document any property violations." Property violations. We lived in a residential neighborhood, not a maximum security prison. Then came the complaints. Our kids were too loud. Max barked too much, which he didn't. Max barely barked at all. Our car was parked too close to his driveway, which it wasn't. We were on our own property. Our garbage cans were unsightly. They were standard garbage cans in our own garage. Emma tried to smooth things over. She baked them a pie. Gerald literally measured the pie tin before accepting it to make sure it wasn't one of ours that we were trying to reclaim later. I'm not kidding. Patricia was quieter, but she'd stand at her window and watch our kids play. Not in a friendly way, in a documenting evidence way. She kept a notebook. The breaking point came on Lily's 9th birthday. We'd planned a small birthday party in our backyard. 10 kids, pizza, a bounce house, some games, normal kid stuff. We'd checked the noise ordinance. Nothing started before 10 a.m. Everything wrapped up by 6 p.m. Completely within legal limits. On 10:15 a.m., Gerald was at our back fence. "This is too loud," he shouted over the sound of children laughing. "Gerald, it's a birthday party. It'll be over by 6. "I don't care. This is disturbing my peace. It's literally the middle of the day on a Saturday. We're allowed to use our yard. Not if it affects my quality of life." He pulled out his phone and started recording. The kids, the bounce house, everything. Some of the kids noticed and got uncomfortable. One of the parents asked me if everything was okay. "It's fine," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Just a neighbor being difficult. Gerald called the police. Actually called 911 to report a noise disturbance at a kid's birthday party at 10:30 in the morning. The officer who showed up looked embarrassed. "Sir, I have to respond to the call, but it's a kid's party. You're not violating any ordinances." "See?" I said to Gerald, who was standing in his yard with his arms crossed. Joe's response was, "I'll be documenting this, all of it." That night, after the party ended and the kids were in bed, Emma sat down at the kitchen table with a glass of wine. "We can't live like this," she said quietly. "He's making our kids afraid to play in their own yard." She was right. Lily had started asking if it was okay to kick a ball around. Jake didn't want to play outside if Mr. Whitmore was in his yard. Max would whine at the back door, confused about why we weren't letting him out as much. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "Sell the house? We just got here. The kids love it here. We love it here." "I don't know, but something has to change." The next escalation came 2 weeks later. Gerald installed a fence, not on the property line, 6 inches into what he claimed was his property, but which effectively cut off a strip of our yard that we'd been using for 3 years. "That's our property," I said when I saw him measuring. "According to my survey, this is mine. The previous owners of your house were encroaching. We had our own survey done when we bought the place. That's our land." "Then take me to court." I called our real estate attorney. She looked at both surveys. "She's wrong," she said, "but fighting this in court will cost you $15,000 minimum. Take a year and make your life hell in the meantime. Is it worth it for a 6-inch strip of lawn?" Legally, no. Emotionally, I wanted to fight. But with 2 kids and a mortgage, $15,000 wasn't something we could just throw around to prove a point. Gerald knew this. That's why he did it. The fence went up. Ugly chain link, 4 feet high, right through what used to be our yard. Then came the letters. Formal complaints filed with the Homeowners Association. We were violating 12 different HOA rules, apparently. Our grass was a 1/4 inch too tall. Our mailbox was the wrong shade of black. Our garden gnome, a gift from my mother-in-law, was decorative clutter. Every single complaint came from Gerald and Patricia. The HOA president, a reasonable guy named Tom, called me apologetically. "Look, I have to follow up on complaints, but between you and me, this is ridiculous. Just try to keep him happy, okay?" "By doing what? Moving?" "I don't know, man. Some people are just like this. We cut our grass more frequently, repainted our mailbox, put the gnome in storage, did everything they asked. It didn't matter. New complaints came every week. Our kids' bikes were parked improperly in our own driveway. Our outdoor furniture was an eyesore. Our Christmas lights were up 4 days past the HOA deadline for removal. Emma started having anxiety attacks. She'd see Gerald in his yard and her chest would tighten. She started avoiding our own backyard, the one we paid for, because she didn't want to deal with him. The kids asked if we could move. My 8 and 6-year-old children wanted to move because our neighbor had made their lives miserable. That's when I stopped trying to be reasonable. I did research, hours and hours of research into property law, HOA regulations, local ordinances, and petty revenge tactics that were completely legal. I joined online forums for people dealing with nightmare neighbors, read hundreds of posts, took notes, planned. The thing about Gerald was that he was obsessed with 2 things, his property line and his view. That river view was why he'd bought the house. He'd mentioned it multiple times. How he and Patricia had their morning coffee on their back deck, watching the sunrise over the Clearwater River. How it was their retirement dream. Their deck had a perfect, unobstructed view of the river, through our yard. And that's when I had the idea. I called a landscaping company. I want to plant a privacy hedge along my property line. What grows fast and tall? The landscaper, a guy named McGill, grinned like he knew exactly what I was doing. Leyland cypress grows 3 to 4 feet per year. You can get them up to 10, 12 feet pretty quick. How close to the property line can I plant them? As long as they're on your property, you can plant them right on the line. Technically, you could even let them grow over onto his property, but he could trim them back at that point. What if I plant them 6 inches inside my property line, on my side? Then they're completely yours. He can't touch them. And they'll block a view. Miguel's grin widened. Oh yeah, completely. I ran it by Emma that night. It's petty, I admitted. Really petty. How petty? She asked. It'll completely block their river view. They'll be staring at a wall of green. She thought about it for maybe 5 seconds. Do it. You sure? He made our daughter cry last week because her chalk drawing was too close to his driveway. He called animal control on Max for barking, which he doesn't even do. He's made our lives hell for 2 years. Plant the damn trees. I bought 40 Leyland cypress trees, 10 feet tall to start. Had them delivered on a Saturday morning when Gerald and Patricia were out. Miguel and his crew worked fast. By the time the Whitmores came home that afternoon, there was a solid wall of green running the entire length of our shared property line. I was in my backyard watching my kids play on their swing set when I heard Gerald's car pull into his driveway. 10 seconds of silence. Then, what the hell is this? I walked over to the fence. Gerald was standing in his backyard staring at the trees, his face bright red. Privacy hedge, I said calmly. Completely legal. Completely on my property. This blocks my view. Does it? Huh. That's unfortunate. You did this on purpose. I did it for privacy. You've made it very clear you don't want to see or hear us. This way, you won't have to. I'm calling the HOA. Go ahead. I already checked. There's no rule against planting trees on your own property. Patricia came out, saw the trees, and her face just crumbled. That view was everything to them. You can't do this, she said quietly. I already did. Gerald filed a complaint with the HOA within the hour. Tom, the HOA president, called me that evening. Dude, and I could hear him trying not to laugh. Those trees. What about them? Gerald is losing his mind. He's demanding we make you remove them. Can you? Nope. You're completely within your rights. There's no height restriction on trees, no rule about blocking views. You're fine. Good. He's threatening to sue you. For what? Planting trees on my own property? I don't think he has a case, but he's talking to a lawyer. Let him. Tom paused. Look, I know he's been making your life hell. Everyone knows. And between you and me, this is the funniest thing I've seen in 10 years of being HOA president. But it's going to get messy. It's already messy. This way, at least I don't have to see his face while he measures my grass. Gerald did talk to a lawyer, who apparently told him the same thing. I was within my rights. But Gerald wasn't done. He filed a complaint with the city claiming the trees were a safety hazard. The city inspector came out, looked at the trees, and said, "These are fine. Actually, these are nice trees." He tried to claim they were blocking his sunlight, which was affecting his solar panels, except he didn't have solar panels. He called our mortgage company, trying to report us for property damage. They told him that wasn't how mortgages worked. Every avenue he tried went nowhere. Meanwhile, those Leyland cypress trees did exactly what Miguel promised. They grew. Fast. Within 6 months, they'd added another 2 feet of height. Within a year, they were a solid 12-foot wall of green. Dense. Impenetrable. Completely blocking the Whitmore's view of the river. Our backyard, meanwhile, became private for the first time in 2 years. The kids could play without being watched. Max could run around without being filmed. Emma could garden without anxiety. We put up string lights, got a fire pit, actually started enjoying our yard again. And every time I saw Gerald in his yard, glaring at those trees, I'd smile and wave. The complaints didn't stop, but they got more desperate, more ridiculous. He claimed our outdoor fire pit was creating smoke that damaged his property. The fire marshal came out, said the fire pit was completely legal and properly installed. He said our kids' trampoline was too loud. There's no such ordinance. He tried to get Max classified as a dangerous dog because he barked once at a squirrel. Animal control laughed him out of their office. Every single complaint was dismissed because we weren't doing anything wrong. We never have been. The HOA eventually told Gerald to stop filing frivolous complaints or they'd fine him for harassment. 2 years after we planted the trees, Gerald and Patricia put their house up for sale. The realtor came over to introduce herself. "I wanted to give you a heads up that your neighbors are selling. Hopefully the new owners will be easier." "What's their asking price?" She hesitated. "Between you and me, the view is a major selling point for these river properties. Without it..." She glanced at my trees. "It affects the value." I winced. "Yeah, about that. The previous owners and I had some issues. I planted those trees for privacy. But if you want, once they grow in a bit more, we could trim them back a little on your side, create some sight lines to the river." Her face lit up. "Really? That would be amazing." "Of course. We're neighbors. That's what neighbors do." Mark laughed. "The realtor told us the previous owners were difficult, said something about a property line dispute. They were very particular about boundaries. Let's just leave it at that." "Well, we're not. Coper's probably going to end up in your yard at some point. He's an escape artist. And our daughter loves making friends. Hope your kids like having another kid around." "They'll love it." And they did. Within a week, the kids were playing together. The dogs were best friends. Rachel and Emma started having coffee together. It was everything the first 2 years should have been. 6 months later, I was trimming the trees like I'd promised, taking a few feet off the top on their side, creating a partial view of the river again. Mark came out with beers. "You really didn't have to do this." I wanted to. Those trees were planted out of spite, not because I actually needed a 12-foot privacy wall. The previous owners must have really gotten under your skin. They made our lives hell for 2 years. over nothing, over imaginary property violations and kids being kids. I just chose to plant some trees. Legal trees. On my property. That happened to grow really, really well. Was it petty? Absolutely. Was it revenge? Maybe. But it was also self-defense. Those trees gave my family peace, privacy, the ability to enjoy our home without being watched and judged and reported. The fact that it tanked their property value, that was just karma with good fertilizer. Have you ever dealt with nightmare neighbors? What did you do about it? Did you fight back or just deal with it? Drop your story in the comments. And if you're dealing with a difficult neighbor right now, remember, revenge doesn't have to be illegal. It just requires good landscaping. Hit that like button if you believe in petty justice, and subscribe for more stories where karma comes with fertilizer. This is Revenge Diaries, where sometimes the best revenge grows 3 feet per year. See you next time.